The queen saw my necklace, remembered the day I saved her, and asked me to sit beside her. The starport was alive with noise, steam, and the constant hum of ships preparing for departure. Alex wiped grease off his hands, leaving dark streaks on his simple blue tunic, and stepped back to admire his work. The merchant ship he had been repairing for days now gleamed under the artificial lights, its engines purring smoothly. For a human engineer in a galaxy dominated by alien species, Alex's skills were his ticket to respect and survival. Yet he often went unnoticed, blending into the chaos of ships, traders, and travelers. Around his neck hung a small, delicate chain, holding a pendant shaped like a star. It wasn't flashy or valuable, but it carried memories that meant more than any medal or honor could. The necklace had been a gift from his mentor, a human who had believed in him when few others did. Alex touched it absent-mindedly as he surveyed the docking bay, feeling the familiar weight against his chest. A sudden commotion at the entrance of the port drew his attention. Uniformed guards pushed through the crowd, their movements sharp and purposeful. People murmured and moved aside, bowing slightly to acknowledge the arrival of someone important. Alex frowned. The Empire's queen rarely visited a starport like this. She had enough courtiers and advisors to manage her affairs without leaving the safety of her palace. "Why would the queen come here?" he muttered, more to himself than anyone else. He shook his head and turned back to his workbench, but a whisper reached him from the crowd. "That's him," a guard said, leaning close to a companion. "The human who saved the queen, do you remember?" Alex froze. The words hit him like a sudden jolt of electricity. Saved the queen. That had happened years ago, on a distant colony far from the political heart of the Empire. It was a memory he rarely revisited, because it reminded him of fear, chaos, and the weight of responsibility he had carried alone. Back then, a surprise alien attack had overwhelmed the small security detail protecting the queen. He had been there by chance, barely trained for combat, yet he had acted without hesitation. He had pulled her from the blast of plasma fire, shielded her from alien claws, and risked his life when everyone else had frozen. Few remembered the day, fewer still had ever acknowledged it. Alex exhaled slowly, trying to calm the sudden tension in his chest. He adjusted the necklace around his neck, as if that small token could ground him in the present. The crowd's murmurs grew louder as a convoy of sleek, armored vehicles rolled into the docking bay. The air shimmered with energy shields, and the distinctive hum of royal vessels drew every eye. People scattered to give way to the queen's procession. Alex stepped back, instinctively moving aside, though his heart beat faster than it had in years. He didn't need to see her to recognize her presence. Authority radiated from the queen like a force field, even without her standing in front of him. Her voice was calm and commanding, her footsteps precise. He could feel the air shift as she moved closer, and something in him, a mixture of anticipation and fear, stirred to life. The queen stopped near the repaired merchant ship, her eyes scanning the crowd. Then, almost impossibly, they fell on him. Alex's breath caught in his throat. Recognition sparked in her gaze as it fell on the pendant around his neck. "Alex," she said, her voice carrying easily across the dock. The sound alone was enough to silence the surrounding crowd. "Is that yours?" Alex blinked, unsure whether to step forward or vanish into the crowd. He had never imagined a royal noticing him, let alone recognizing the necklace that had been with him through so much. He shook his head, unsure what to say. "Yes," he finally replied, his voice steady despite the whirlwind of memories rushing through him. "It's mine." Her eyes softened as she took a step closer. "I remember now the day you saved me." The words hung in the air like a delicate thread connecting the past to the present. "I have never forgotten it." Alex felt a strange warmth inside him, a mix of pride and disbelief. Few people ever remembered what he had done, and fewer still had acknowledged it. Now, the Queen of the Empire, one of the most powerful figures in the galaxy, stood before him and recalled his actions with clarity. "You," he began, but the words failed him. How could he explain the fear, the chaos, the uncertainty? How could he tell her that he had acted out of instinct, not courage? The queen smiled faintly, as if reading his thoughts. "You acted without hesitation when everyone else froze. That is something rare in any being, human or not. Sit with me during the ceremony. I wish to have your company." The surrounding nobles and guards gasped. To sit beside the queen was an honor reserved for the highest-ranking officials, not a human engineer from a starport. Alex shook his head instinctively, but she gestured with a wave of her hand. The command in her tone left no room for refusal. Reluctantly, he followed her as she moved toward a raised platform prepared for the ceremony. Every step he took felt surreal. The crowd parted, whispering and staring. Some faces were filled with awe, others with suspicion. The Empire had long held humans as capable but unremarkable, and now one of them was being celebrated in a way few could imagine. As he reached the platform, Alex stole a glance at the Queen. She gave him a small nod, a gesture of reassurance, and then turned her attention back to the gathering crowd. It was as if nothing extraordinary was happening, though everything had changed for him in that moment. Sitting beside her, he noticed how the crowd reacted. Aliens of various species murmured in disbelief, their expressions ranging from curiosity to thinly veiled envy. Some of the humans nearby exchanged looks of astonishment. For once, a human was being recognized not just for labor or skill, but for courage and loyalty. Alex felt a quiet pride swelling inside him. The Queen spoke to the assembly, her voice carrying authority and warmth. She recounted the events of the distant colony, highlighting the bravery of one human who had risked everything to save her life. Alex listened quietly, his hands resting on his knees, feeling the weight of history settle on his shoulders. The words stirred old memories, the blast of alien weapons, the screams, the fear, and then the relief when he had dragged her to safety. He had never considered himself a hero. That label had always belonged to soldiers, leaders, and legends. Yet now, in the eyes of the Queen and those who listened, he realized that courage didn't belong to rank or species. It belonged to those who acted when it mattered most. As the ceremony continued, Alex's mind wandered briefly to the necklace. It had survived through dust, fire, and long journeys across the galaxy, always reminding him of his mentor and the lessons he had learned. Now it also reminded him of a day he had thought forgotten, a day when a human had changed the course of the Empire's history without expecting anything in return. The Queen leaned slightly toward him. "Do not worry about the whispers," she said softly. "Not all will understand, but those who matter do. Your presence here is a symbol." Alex nodded, trying to process the honor and responsibility. The whispers around him had not entirely ceased. He could feel eyes on him, measuring him, questioning him. Yet for the first time, he felt a sense of purpose beyond repairing ships and surviving the crowded starports. He was part of something larger, and it was both thrilling and daunting. Suddenly, a sharp noise cut through the ceremony, a spark from the machinery powering the energy shields nearby. Several nobles flinched, but Alex's instincts kicked in immediately. He moved toward the source, his hands steady despite the eyes upon him. Within moments, he had stabilized the system, preventing what could have been a dangerous mishap. The Queen's eyes flicked toward him, a spark of approval lighting her gaze. "Your skills are unmatched, Alex," she said quietly. "Bravery alone is rare, but skill combined with courage, that is exceptional." He bowed his head slightly, feeling both pride and humility. He was a human, often overlooked and underestimated, yet here he was, recognized not only for his past actions but also for his talents in the present. As the ceremony drew to a close, Alex realized that life on the starport, the endless repairs, and the solitude he had grown accustomed to were no longer enough. There were larger battles, greater challenges, and a role he had yet to fully understand. The necklace around his neck felt heavier now, not with weight, but with meaning. It connected his past courage to his present duty, linking him to a queen who trusted him beyond the bounds of tradition. When the crowd finally dispersed, the queen remained seated, and Alex stayed by her side. Together, they watched the starport slowly return to its usual rhythm. Traders resumed their work, ships prepared for departure, and life went on as if nothing extraordinary had happened. Yet Alex knew differently. He had been called to something greater, recognized for something that transcended species, rank, and expectation. And in that moment, as he adjusted the necklace and looked at the Queen, Alex understood that this was only the beginning of a journey that would test courage, loyalty, and the true measure of humanity in a galaxy that had yet to fully appreciate it. The Queen turned to him one last time before departing. "Remember this day," she said, "for it marks a new path. One day your courage and skill will shape the Empire itself." Alex nodded, the weight of her words settling in his chest like a promise. The necklace gleamed softly under the lights. a silent witness to the moment when a human had stepped forward and been recognized not just as a savior, but as a companion to a queen and a symbol of hope for the galaxy. After the ceremony ended, the crowd slowly dispersed, leaving. The starport quieter, though still alive with the hum of engines and the clatter of cargo being loaded. Alex remained beside the queen, feeling the lingering weight of attention. The royal entourage had mostly returned to their ships, but a few guards lingered near the platform, their eyes constantly scanning for trouble. Alex could feel the subtle tension. Even though the immediate danger had passed, he knew that being recognized by the queen could bring unforeseen challenges. The queen watched him closely, her expression calm but thoughtful. "Walk with me," she said, her voice low but carrying authority. They moved through the docking bay together, stepping carefully to avoid the curious eyes of port officials and travelers. "I want to speak to you privately," she added, glancing around to ensure no one else would overhear. Alex followed, careful not to appear too eager, though his heart raced. Memories of the day he had saved her resurfaced. The alien ambush, the blast of plasma fire, the smell of burning metal, the weight of responsibility pressing down on him as he dragged her to safety. Few knew the full story, and even fewer understood the risks he had taken. Now the queen wanted to discuss it openly. They entered a small, secluded chamber within the starport's administration building. The room was simple, with large windows overlooking the docks, and only the hum of engines from departing ships broke the silence. The queen gestured for Alex to sit. He hesitated for a moment before lowering himself onto a chair beside her. "You saved me on a day I will never forget," she began, her eyes meeting his. "Few have shown the courage you did. And now, seeing you here, I realize how much I need allies like you." Alex kept his gaze steady, though his mind was spinning. "I didn't do it for recognition," he said quietly. "I did it because it was the right thing to do. I just acted." She smiled faintly. "And that is exactly why you matter. Courage without thought is reckless. Thought without courage is useless. You combined both, and that is rare in any being." Her tone shifted slightly, more serious now. "There are forces in the Empire who would question my decision to honor a human in this way. They will watch you, test you, and try to turn loyalty into doubt. You need to be ready for that." Alex nodded slowly, feeling the weight of her words. He had always relied on skill, instinct, and careful planning, but navigating court politics was entirely different. It was a battlefield of whispers, subtle gestures, and unseen alliances. And now, by sitting beside the queen, he had entered that world. The queen's gaze softened. "I also want you to understand something else. That day on the colony was not just a matter of survival. Humans have a resilience that few species possess. You see danger, fear, and impossible odds, yet you still act. That is why I trust you." Alex glanced down at the necklace around his neck. It had always been a symbol of his past, but now it felt like a link to the future, something that connected him to the queen and to a role he had never imagined he would play. "I'll do my best," he said simply. "But I don't know much about politics or how the Empire works at that level." She leaned slightly forward, her voice firm. "You do not need to know everything. You need to trust your instincts as you always have. And you need to remember that being human is not a weakness. It is a strength. Others may underestimate you. Use that to your advantage." Alex considered her words carefully. He had spent his life being underestimated, brushed aside, or ignored. Now that perception could become a tool, but it also meant being constantly watched, and he could feel the shadow of potential danger lurking just beyond the walls of the starport. Their conversation was interrupted by a soft chime from the chamber's communication system. A royal aide appeared in the doorway, bowing slightly. "Your Majesty, there is a situation in the lower docks. A minor energy fluctuation in the shields, nothing critical, but it could cause damage if not addressed immediately." Alex's instincts kicked in automatically. "Show me," he said, standing. The queen's eyes flicked toward him with trust, not command, and he felt a surge of responsibility. They moved quickly to the source of the problem, a section of the docking bay where energy conduits hummed and sparked dangerously. Without hesitation, Alex knelt beside the panel, inspecting the circuits. His fingers moved with precision, rerouting power and stabilizing the system. Sparks flew, and the hum of the energy shields fluctuated, but within moments the danger had passed. The lights stabilized, and the shield generators returned to their normal rhythm. The queen watched quietly, impressed by his skill and composure. You do not panic in the face of risk, she said. That is exactly why I asked you to stay beside me today. I trust that you will see danger before others do and act when it matters most. Alex straightened, brushing dust from his hands. It's what I do, he replied simply. Yet inside, a sense of pride began to grow. He had spent years as a quiet engineer, unnoticed and uncelebrated. Now his skills and courage were recognized not just by a few, but by the most powerful ruler in the galaxy. The crowd that had gathered around the docks had begun to disperse again, murmuring among themselves about the human who had helped the queen. Aliens and humans alike exchanged glances, some impressed, others uneasy. Alex realized that he had become more than a figure of past bravery. He was now a symbol, and symbols carried weight in ways that actions alone never could. As they returned to the chamber, the queen's tone softened. You have seen only a small part of what is happening in the Empire, she said. There are those who would resist any change, any acknowledgement of humans' value. You must be prepared for whispers, doubts, and attempts to undermine you. Do not let it discourage you. Alex nodded, feeling the gravity of her words. He had faced alien attacks and environmental hazards, but navigating human and alien politics at this level was an entirely different challenge. And yet, the Queen's trust gave him a sense of direction, a purpose beyond survival. Your necklace, she said suddenly, her eyes returning to the pendant. It is more than a trinket. It is a symbol of the day you acted without thought for yourself and for the lives of others. It reminds everyone that courage comes in many forms and from unexpected places. Alex touched the necklace, feeling the cool metal against his fingers. He had always worn it as a memory, a connection to his mentor and the lessons of the past. Now it carried new meaning, a reminder of trust, responsibility, and the recognition that his actions mattered in ways he had never imagined. The Queen's expression grew serious. I want you to understand that your presence here is not just for today. You are becoming a part of a larger plan. The Empire is changing and humans will play a role. I trust that you will act with integrity, skill, and courage as you always have. Alex considered her words carefully. He had always acted for survival, for duty, for the safety of others. Now, those actions had consequences that reached far beyond the starport, beyond the colony where he had first saved her. He was stepping into a larger story, one that would test not just his skills, but his judgment, his loyalty, and his courage in new ways. A soft beep from the chamber interrupted his thoughts. A data pad had been left on a nearby table, displaying a message from the Queen's advisors. They were preparing a new initiative to strengthen the Empire's defenses, and the Queen wanted Alex's input on engineering strategies. It was unexpected, but it made sense. She had seen his capabilities firsthand. Alex picked up the pad and scanned the information. Plans for new energy shields, security systems, and rapid response mechanisms filled the screen. His mind raced as he considered improvements, adjustments, and enhancements. The work was complex but familiar. For the first time, he realized that his expertise could influence not just ships or starports, but the very infrastructure of the Empire itself. The Queen watched him quietly, a small smile playing on her lips. You have a rare mind, Alex, she said softly. You see solutions where others see obstacles. That is why I trust you. Hours passed as they worked together, reviewing designs, discussing strategies, and planning contingencies. Alex felt a connection growing, not just to the Queen, but to a vision of the Empire where humans and aliens could work together, where skill and courage were valued above species or rank. He realized that this was more than recognition. It was an opportunity to shape the future. As night fell over the starport, the lights of ships and buildings casting a soft glow, Alex finally leaned back, exhausted but invigorated. The Queen regarded him with a mixture of respect and appreciation. Rest now, she said. There will be challenges ahead, and I will need your mind and your courage, but tonight you have earned your place. Alex nodded, feeling a profound sense of purpose. The necklace rested against his chest, a constant reminder of the day he had acted without hesitation and the path he had chosen to follow since then. He had saved a queen once, and now he would help guide an empire toward a future that valued courage, skill, and humanity. The city outside the starport was alive with the hum of technology, the movement of countless beings, and the quiet promise of opportunity. Alex stepped onto the balcony, looking out over the lights. He realized that his life had changed irrevocably. The past had called him, the Queen had recognized him, and the future was waiting for his actions. He was no longer just a human among thousands in the Empire. He was a symbol of hope, a trusted companion to a queen, and a reminder that courage could bridge gaps that politics, prejudice, and history often could not. And as he touched the necklace one last time, he knew that this was only the beginning of a story that would challenge him in ways he had never imagined, and define him in ways he had yet to understand. The next morning, the starport was unusually quiet. Most travelers had left after the Queen's brief visit, but the lingering presence of her entourage created a tension in the air. Alex walked through the docking bay, checking the repaired engines of several ships. His mind was still buzzing from the previous day's events. Sitting beside the Queen had been an honor beyond anything he had imagined, yet it had also thrust him into a world of observation and expectation he was not accustomed to. He adjusted the necklace around his neck as he worked, feeling its reassuring weight. It had become more than a token from the past. It was now a symbol of recognition, responsibility, and a reminder that his actions carried consequences far beyond what he could see. A sharp voice called out behind him. "Alex, wait." He turned to see a member of the Queen's security detail approaching, a small data pad in hand. "The Queen has requested your presence in the palace. There have been developments you should see." Alex hesitated for a moment. His instincts warned him that developments, in royal terms, often meant complications or trouble. Still, he nodded and followed the guard, keeping his movements calm despite the nervous anticipation building in his chest. The palace was a vast structure of gleaming white metal, rising above the city like a beacon. Its towers reflected the morning sun, and the walls were lined with surveillance and energy shielding systems designed to withstand both natural disasters and hostile attacks. Inside, the air was cooler, carrying the faint scent of polished metal and refined technology. The Queen awaited him in a private council room where several advisors and nobles were already gathered. Alex's arrival drew glances from the assembly. Humans rarely moved freely within these halls, and fewer still had a seat of importance beside the Queen. Their whispers were subtle but unmistakable, filled with a mix of curiosity, skepticism, and quiet astonishment. Alex felt their eyes but ignored them, focusing instead on the task at hand. The Queen looked at him with calm authority. "I trust you are ready, Alex. There are matters of both security and loyalty that require attention." She gestured to a holographic display that lit up the center of the room. Maps, schematics, and reports appeared, detailing energy fluctuations, security anomalies, and intelligence about potential threats within the Empire. Alex studied the data carefully, noting irregularities in certain palace zones. There were patterns that only someone with a practical understanding of engineering and logic could detect. "Some of these fluctuations are minor," he said, pointing to a cluster of readings near the docking bay. "But others could indicate intentional interference, tampering with systems to create confusion or accidents. If left unchecked, it could escalate into something serious." A murmured discussion broke out among the advisors. Several alien nobles exchanged glances, their expressions skeptical. One of them, a tall figure with emerald-scaled skin, leaned forward. "And you human would know better than our trained security officers?" he asked, his voice sharp, testing Alex. Alex met the alien's gaze steadily. "I have hands-on experience with these systems. I can identify patterns and detect anomalies faster than someone relying solely on theory." He gestured toward the display. "See these fluctuations here? They are too precise to be random. Someone is experimenting with the palace's energy conduits, probably to test vulnerabilities." The Queen nodded. "He is correct. I trust Alex's judgment because he has proven that skill and courage matter more than rank. We must investigate this carefully and discreetly." A soft tension fell over the room. Whispers of suspicion and subtle challenge rippled through the gathered nobles. Alex could feel it, the quiet undercurrent of politics, where every gesture, word, and decision was scrutinized. He had expected the attention, but not the thinly veiled hostility. "Alex," the Queen continued, her voice calm but firm, "I need you to lead a small team to identify the source of these disturbances. You will have access to all necessary resources. I want results before the end of the week." Alex's mind raced. It was a huge responsibility, one that went beyond repairing ships or stabilizing shields. This was palace security, intelligence, and potentially uncovering sabotage. Yet beneath the pressure, a thrill stirred. He had always thrived on challenges, and now his skills were being called to serve at the highest level. He nodded. "I understand. I will begin immediately." The Queen's gaze lingered on him. "Remember, Alex, not all threats are external. Some may come from those who wish to weaken the empire from within. Trust your instincts, and do not underestimate subtlety." Alex left the room with a small team of engineers and palace security specialists. Most of them were alien, skilled in their respective fields, and initially wary of following a human. He ignored their doubts, focusing instead on analyzing the energy readings and reviewing access logs for the palace's systems. His mind moved quickly, connecting patterns, identifying anomalies, and predicting potential outcomes. Hours passed as they traced fluctuations to a network of maintenance tunnels beneath the palace. There, Alex discovered subtle tampering, wires rerouted slightly, energy regulators adjusted, and microchips replaced with sophisticated decoys. The precision was impressive, but Alex's practical knowledge allowed him to detect the irregularities. He called the team together. "This isn't random," he said. "Someone is testing the systems, probably trying to create a distraction or a vulnerability. We need to reinforce security and monitor these zones continuously. I also want to track who has had access to these tunnels in the last month. Patterns will reveal our suspect." As the team worked, Alex's thoughts drifted to the Queen. She had placed her trust in him, not only for his courage, but for his judgment and insight. That trust was both empowering and daunting. He realized that by stepping into this role, he had become a part of the Empire's inner workings. Every decision he made could influence outcomes far beyond the palace walls. Late in the afternoon, as Alex reviewed data with the team, an alert flashed on one of the monitors. A section of the palace's main energy conduit was being accessed remotely. He immediately traced the signal to a maintenance terminal on the upper levels, a place where few humans were allowed. "This is deliberate," he said, his voice calm but urgent. "Someone is probing the system right now. We need to respond immediately." The team moved quickly under his direction. They found the terminal, a sleek panel embedded in the wall, and Alex examined the controls. Tiny adjustments had been made to reroute energy and create potential failures, all subtle enough to appear accidental. Yet Alex's sharp eyes caught the inconsistencies immediately. He isolated the interference and restored the proper configuration. The system stabilized and the alert ceased. He let out a quiet breath, knowing that the immediate threat had passed, but the larger question remained: who was behind this and why? Returning to the council chamber, Alex reported his findings to the Queen. She listened intently, her calm exterior masking a flicker of concern. "This confirms my suspicions," she said. "There are those within the Empire who resent my decisions, who see humans as intruders rather than allies. They are testing loyalty, exploiting fear, and seeking opportunities to create chaos." Alex frowned. "We need to identify them before they escalate further. Subtle actions can lead to serious consequences." The Queen nodded. "I agree. That is why I trust you to continue observing, investigating, and acting. Your perspective is invaluable precisely because you are not entirely part of the court. You see things differently." In the days that followed, Alex continued his dual role of engineer and advisor. He inspected systems, monitored energy flows, and analyzed security logs, all while navigating the quiet tension of the palace. He noticed subtle shifts in the behavior of certain nobles, the way glances lingered too long, and the whispers that ceased abruptly whenever he entered a room. One evening, as he worked late in the palace library, a soft voice spoke from the shadows. "Human." Alex looked up to see an older advisor, a human woman who had served the Queen for decades. "You are taking risks by being so visible," she said, her tone cautious. "Some see your presence beside her as a challenge to tradition. You must be careful." Alex leaned back, considering her words. "I understand, but I can't ignore what I see. If someone is undermining the Queen, I have to act." She nodded slowly. "Then you must act wisely. Courage without discretion can be dangerous here." Alex took her advice to heart, realizing that court politics required more than skill. It required subtlety, observation, and strategy. He couldn't rely solely on instinct and engineering. He needed patience and insight. As the days passed, he uncovered more anomalies, tampered maintenance logs, altered energy readings, and messages hidden in encrypted data streams. Each discovery reinforced his understanding. The Empire was a complex web of loyalty, ambition, and hidden agendas. Yet despite the danger, Alex felt a growing sense of purpose. He was no longer just a human engineer. He was a trusted ally of the Queen, a symbol of courage and skill, and a key player in maintaining the Empire's stability. One evening, as he stood on the palace balcony watching the twin suns set, the Queen joined him. She remained silent for a long moment, observing the city below. Finally, she spoke. "You are doing well, Alex. Your skill and judgment have proven invaluable. But remember, there is always more to learn and always more to see. The Empire is larger and more complicated than it appears." Alex nodded. "I understand. I'll remain vigilant." She placed a hand briefly on his shoulder. "And I trust that you will. That is why you are here. That is why you are important." Alex looked at the necklace resting against his chest, the pendant catching the last rays of the sun. It was more than a piece of metal now. It was a reminder of courage, of trust, and of the role he had stepped into. A human who had saved a queen once and now worked beside her to safeguard an entire empire. The city lights began to flicker on as night approached, casting long shadows across the palace grounds. Alex felt a mixture of anticipation and resolve. Challenges awaited, hidden dangers lurked, and conspiracies threatened stability, but he was ready. He had the Queen's trust, his own skill, and the courage that had once driven him to save her life. And he knew that no matter what obstacles arose, he would face them as a human, fully aware of both his strengths and his responsibilities. For the first time in his life, Alex realized that being human was not a limitation. It was a unique advantage in a galaxy that often underestimated him. The night air was cool against his face, carrying the faint hum of distant ships and the soft murmur of the city. Alex stood tall, feeling the quiet weight of responsibility and the growing sense of purpose. The palace might be filled with whispers, hidden threats, and unseen dangers, but he was ready to meet them head-on. Because courage, skill, and loyalty were not measured by species or status. They were measured by actions. And Alex had already proven that humans could act when it mattered most. The Empire was changing, though few outside the Queen's inner circle realized it. Whispers of a human sitting beside the monarch had spread quickly, reaching distant colonies and cities across star systems. In the markets, spaceports, and trade hubs, rumors circulated about Alex, the human who had saved the Queen and now held her trust. Most of these stories were whispered with curiosity, some with awe, and a few with envy. Alex, however, remained focused on the work at hand. He spent his mornings in the palace, inspecting energy conduits, analyzing security protocols, and guiding engineers through complex repairs. By afternoon, he attended council sessions, quietly observing the political currents swirling around him. Every gesture, every glance, every phrase was measured for meaning. He had learned quickly that courage alone would not keep him safe here. Subtlety, perception, and timing were just as important as skill. The Queen often included him in her discussions, asking for his input on strategies, system enhancements, and security designs. At first, some of the alien nobles bristled, whispering behind his back about a human meddling in matters far beyond his station. Yet over time, they began to recognize his sharp mind and the value of his practical knowledge. Alex did not seek approval, but he noticed when grudging respect replaced suspicion. One evening, the Queen invited him to a private viewing chamber overlooking the city. The twin suns were setting, casting long shadows across the palace grounds and painting the skyline in hues of orange and purple. "Alex," she began, her voice calm yet commanding, "your presence here has not gone unnoticed. Many see you as a symbol of what humans can achieve. Some celebrate it, others fear it. You must be aware of the responsibility that comes with this attention." Alex nodded, resting a hand on the pendant around his neck. "I understand, but I did not ask for attention. I only want to help." She smiled faintly. "And yet your actions have consequences beyond what you intend. Courage inspires and skill empowers. You are becoming a figure in this empire, whether you wish it or not." He considered her words. It was strange, almost dizzying, to think that a single human could influence the perception of countless beings across star systems. Yet he realized that the Queen was right. Even small actions could ripple outward, changing hearts and minds. The next morning, Alex received a message from the palace communications office. There had been unusual activity in one of the Empire's outer colonies. A station critical to interstellar trade had reported minor sabotage. Machines malfunctioned, security systems flickered, and the station's leadership requested immediate consultation. Alex knew the implications. It was a subtle message, likely designed to test his response and the Queen's reliance on him. He gathered a small team of engineers and security specialists and prepared to travel. The Queen stood beside him before departure, her gaze steady. "Trust your instincts, Alex. You will face challenges that are not only technical but political. How you act will determine more than just the outcome here. It may shape the Empire's perception of humans." Alex nodded, the weight of responsibility pressing on his shoulders. He boarded the transport shuttle, feeling the familiar hum of the engines beneath him. The journey across star systems was long, giving him time to prepare mentally. He reviewed schematics of the station, analyzed energy flows, and considered possible points of interference. His practical mind worked efficiently, connecting patterns that others might overlook. Upon arrival, the station's director greeted him with cautious respect. "We are honored by your presence," she said, her tone formal. "The malfunctions began yesterday, and we have been unable to determine the cause." Alex moved quickly, inspecting the main control hub. Machines flickered sporadically, data logs were corrupted in small but noticeable ways, and power fluctuations suggested deliberate tampering. He knelt beside the central console, examining circuits and energy regulators. His fingers moved with precision, tracing anomalies and restoring order. "This is not random," he explained to the director. "Someone has adjusted the systems carefully to appear accidental. Whoever did this understands both the technology and the consequences of exposure. We need to monitor closely to prevent escalation." As the day progressed, Alex worked tirelessly, repairing sabotage, analyzing patterns, and securing the station's systems. His presence inspired the station's engineers and crew, who observed his skill with a mix of admiration and curiosity. Slowly, they began to understand that this human was not just an engineer but a problem solver, a strategist, and someone capable of seeing connections others might miss. Meanwhile, word of Alex's intervention spread through the station and beyond. Holographic transmissions, secure messages, and interstellar news channels carried accounts of the human who had stabilized the station when experts had failed. Rumors of his courage and skill reached colonies far and wide. For the first time, many beings began to reconsider their assumptions about humans. Back at the palace, the Queen received reports of the station's recovery. She allowed herself a small smile. Alex's influence was growing, and with it, the perception of humans in the Empire. Yet she also knew the dangers. Visibility brought attention, and attention invited envy, jealousy, and betrayal. Some within the court would never accept the rise of a human, no matter how skilled or loyal. Alex returned to the palace, weary but focused. He had accomplished what few could, yet he sensed that his work was only beginning. The subtle undercurrent of political tension remained, and he understood that those who feared change would seek ways to undermine both him and the Queen. He needed to be vigilant, not only as an engineer, but as a guardian of stability and trust. Several days later, during a council session, an urgent message arrived. A report indicated a possible plot to discredit the Queen through staged accidents in key sectors of the Empire. Energy conduits, transport systems, and communication hubs were all potential targets. Alex examined the reports carefully, noting patterns that suggested coordination rather than coincidence. "This is serious," he said, his voice measured but firm. "The sabotage is spreading, and it appears designed to create panic and weaken confidence in leadership. We need to act quickly to identify the source and prevent further incidents." The Queen nodded, her expression composed but serious. "I trust your judgment, Alex. Lead the investigation and keep me informed. I will rely on your expertise to safeguard the Empire." Alex assembled a team of engineers, security officers, and analysts. They divided tasks, tracing anomalies, monitoring energy flows, and securing vulnerable stations. His mind moved efficiently, identifying connections and predicting potential next targets. With each discovery, the pattern became clearer. A faction within the Empire sought to undermine the Queen, testing the limits of her trust in humans and the loyalty of her allies. Late one evening, Alex received a discreet summons from the Queen. He entered her private chamber to find her seated by the observation window, watching the stars. "You have done well," she said. "Your actions are stabilizing more than systems, they are stabilizing faith. People are beginning to see that courage and skill are not confined by species or rank." Alex nodded, feeling the quiet weight of her approval. "It is not just my work," he said. "The team, the engineers, and the security officers, they all contribute. I only help organize and guide." She leaned slightly forward. "Leadership is not only about being in front, it is also about seeing potential, guiding it, and inspiring others to act. You are doing that, Alex, and the Empire is taking notice." Her words settled in his mind, giving him both confidence and responsibility. Recognition, however, was a double-edged sword. He had already seen subtle envy in the court, whispers in the council, and cautious glances from those who doubted his presence. Visibility meant influence, yes, but also scrutiny. The following weeks were a mix of challenge and revelation. Alex traveled between key colonies, stabilizing systems, reinforcing security, and analyzing patterns of sabotage. He found that the network of interference was larger than expected, with hidden operatives and subtle manipulations across multiple sectors. His practical expertise, combined with careful observation, allowed him to anticipate moves and prevent disasters before they occurred. At the same time, his presence began to change perceptions. Humans across the Empire were celebrated in whispered stories and secure reports. Many had long been underestimated, seen as laborers or minor contributors. Now Alex's courage and skill became an example of what humans could achieve, sparking quiet admiration and hope among those who had felt powerless. Yet danger remained. One night, as Alex returned to the palace, a warning arrived from his team. An unknown force had tampered with a minor transport hub. Though the adjustments were subtle, they could have caused a catastrophic failure if left unchecked. Alex moved quickly, analyzing the system and neutralizing the interference. Every small victory strengthened his reputation, but also reminded him of the persistent threats hidden in the shadows. The Queen received his report later that evening. She regarded him with a mixture of pride and concern. "Your vigilance is remarkable," she said. "But remember, Alex, there are those who watch, waiting for missteps. Every success strengthens your position, but it also sharpens the attention of those who would oppose change." Alex understood. His role was not merely technical, it was symbolic, political, and moral. The Empire was learning to see humans differently, and that shift brought both hope and danger. He touched the pendant around his neck, feeling its familiar weight and the memory of the day he had saved the Queen. Courage, skill, and integrity had brought him here, and they would guide him through the challenges ahead. As he looked out over the city from the palace balcony, he realized the truth. Being human was no longer a limitation. It was a unique strength, a combination of creativity, resilience, and perspective. In a galaxy that often underestimated him, he had become an example of what humans could achieve, and a reminder that bravery and intelligence could change history. And somewhere deep in the court, among the whispers and subtle challenges, Alex knew that those who doubted him would soon understand that courage and skill could not be denied, regardless of species. He was ready to meet whatever came next, prepared to defend the Queen, the Empire, and the hope that humans could rise to greatness in ways few had imagined. The palace was quieter than usual that morning, but the stillness was deceptive. Alex moved through the halls with a focused mind, aware of the subtle tension lingering in every corridor. The previous weeks of investigation and security work had revealed a network of sabotage and conspiracies within the Empire. Now everything pointed to a final confrontation. He knew that today could determine not just the stability of the palace, but the perception of humans across the galaxy. The Queen awaited him in the council chamber, her posture calm, yet her eyes sharp. "Alex," she said as he entered, "the situation has reached a critical point. Those who seek to undermine the Empire and discredit humans have been identified. It is time to act decisively." Alex nodded, understanding the gravity of her words. He had traced the conspirators' actions, analyzed their patterns, and predicted their moves. Their plan was to create a cascading failure, tampering with energy conduits, communications, and transportation systems simultaneously to spark panic. If left unchecked, it could have triggered chaos throughout multiple sectors. The Queen continued, "I will rely on your expertise to prevent disaster and bring these individuals to justice. Your skill, judgment, and courage have brought us this far. Now they will test your resolve in ways you have not yet faced." Alex's hand instinctively touched the necklace around his neck. It had been with him through every challenge, a symbol of the day he saved her and the journey he had taken since. Now it reminded him of the stakes ahead and the responsibility he carried, not just for the Queen, but for the Empire and the humans whose reputation hung in the balance. The first step was securing the palace. Alex coordinated teams of engineers and security officers, implementing safeguards and monitoring all critical systems. Energy conduits were reinforced, communication networks encrypted, and transport hubs placed under strict supervision. His instructions were precise, every action calculated to prevent disruption while maintaining calm. While the palace staff carried out these measures, Alex reviewed the intelligence he had gathered. The conspirators were mostly high-ranking officials and nobles who resented the Queen's trust in a human. They had relied on secrecy, manipulation, and the assumption that humans would be underestimated. Alex understood their thinking, but he also knew their strategy had weaknesses. Their reliance on subtlety made them predictable to someone who observed patterns carefully and acted decisively. Late in the afternoon, an alert signaled movement in the palace's lower maintenance corridors. Alex and a team of security officers moved quickly, carefully, and quietly. The corridor was dimly lit, shadows stretching across the walls as they advanced. At the far end, a group of conspirators attempted to access a control panel to destabilize energy systems. "Stop!" Alex shouted as they reached the group. His voice carried authority, and the conspirators froze, startled by his sudden presence. One of them, a tall alien with cold eyes, sneered. "You, a human, you think you can stop us?" Alex's gaze was steady. "I don't think, I know." He moved efficiently, securing the panel and isolating their access. The conspirators attempted to resist, but Alex's team moved with coordination, blocking every escape and securing the area. Within moments, the threat had been neutralized. The Queen arrived shortly afterward, her expression calm, yet her presence carried weight. She surveyed the captured conspirators, then turned to Alex. "You have done well," she said. "You have protected the Empire and shown that courage and skill are not defined by species or rank." Alex allowed himself a moment of quiet pride. The weeks of work, the careful observation, and the subtle strategies had led to this moment. He had acted decisively, using both intellect and bravery to secure the palace. More importantly, he had proven that humans could rise to challenges once thought beyond their reach. News of the confrontation spread quickly throughout the Empire. Reports detailed how a human engineer had discovered and stopped a network of conspirators, stabilizing critical systems and preventing potential disaster. Across star systems, whispers of admiration and respect grew. Humans who had once been overlooked were now recognized for their courage, intelligence, and resourcefulness. Despite the attention, Alex remained humble. He knew that the success had been the result of teamwork, careful planning, and the trust placed in him by the Queen. Yet he also understood that perception mattered. His actions had changed how humans were seen, offering hope and inspiration to those who had long been underestimated. In the aftermath, the Queen held a formal ceremony in the palace courtyard. Nobles, advisors, and officials from across the empire gathered to witness the recognition of those who had contributed to maintaining stability. When the Queen's gaze fell on Alex, she extended her hand and gestured for him to stand beside her. The crowd murmured, some in disbelief, others in admiration. Few had expected a human to share the platform with the Queen. Alex stepped forward, keeping his posture steady despite the attention. The pendant around his neck caught the sunlight, glinting as a symbol of courage, skill, and integrity. "Today," the Queen announced, her voice carrying across the courtyard, "we recognize not only those who serve the Empire with rank and title, but also those who act with courage, skill, and loyalty, regardless of species. This human, Alex, has proven that bravery and intelligence can change the course of events and protect us all." Alex felt a wave of emotion but kept himself composed. He had never sought recognition, yet he understood its significance. The message was clear. Courage, skill, and dedication were what mattered, not birth, rank, or species. As the ceremony continued, Alex noticed the reactions around him. Many of the nobles who had previously whispered and doubted him now showed respect, if only subtly. Citizens from across the empire, hearing of his actions, celebrated quietly, sharing stories of his courage and intelligence. Humans, in particular, began to see new possibilities. Alex had become a symbol of potential, a bridge between perception and reality, showing that anyone could rise above limitations when opportunity and courage aligned. Later, in the quiet of the palace garden, the queen walked beside Alex. "You have changed more than just systems and protocols," she said softly. "You have changed perceptions. You have reminded the Empire that courage, skill, and loyalty can come from anywhere." Alex looked down at the pendant, feeling its familiar weight against his chest. "I only did what needed to be done," he said quietly. "I did not think about recognition or honor," she smiled faintly. "Sometimes the most important actions are those done without thought of reward, but others notice, and when they do, it matters. You have reminded everyone, including me, that humans can rise above expectations." The moment was quiet, yet powerful. Alex realized that his journey had been about more than a single act of bravery. It had been about trust, responsibility, and the quiet strength that comes from dedication and skill. The Empire had recognized him, but more importantly, it had begun to recognize humans in a new light. Weeks passed, and life in the palace began to settle. The conspirators had been removed from positions of influence, their plans foiled by careful observation and timely action. Systems throughout the Empire were reinforced, and protocols improved to prevent future sabotage. Alex continued his work, both technical and advisory, but now with the added weight of public recognition. Everywhere he went, humans and aliens alike treated him differently. Respect replaced skepticism, admiration replaced doubt. Yet Alex remained grounded, focused on the tasks at hand and the responsibilities that came with his unique position. The necklace around his neck remained a constant reminder, not of honor, but of the courage and choices that had brought him here. One evening, the queen invited him to sit beside her in the grand hall. The city lights glimmered through the windows, reflecting the stars above. "You have proven yourself," she said softly, "not just to me, but to the Empire. You have shown that courage, skill, and integrity matter more than titles or birthright. You are a symbol of what humans can achieve." Alex nodded, feeling a quiet sense of fulfillment. "I will continue to serve," he said simply, "not for recognition, but because it is right. Because it matters." The queen smiled, a mixture of pride and gratitude in her eyes. "That is why I trust you. That is why you are here beside me. The Empire is safer, stronger, and wiser because of your actions." For the first time, Alex allowed himself to feel the full weight of what he had accomplished. He had saved a queen, stabilized an empire, and proven that humans could rise to greatness when courage and skill were combined. The pendant around his neck glinted in the soft light, a silent testament to the journey that had brought him here and the potential that still lay ahead. As the night deepened, Alex looked out over the city from the palace balcony. The stars stretched endlessly across the sky, and he felt a sense of peace and purpose. Challenges would come again, as they always did, but he knew that he was ready. Courage, skill, loyalty, these were his tools, and he had proven their worth. The queen stood beside him, her presence steady and reassuring. "Rest now, Alex," she said. "The Empire may face more trials, but tonight we celebrate what has been achieved. You have earned your place here beside me and in the hearts of those who will remember your deeds." Alex adjusted the pendant one last time and nodded. "Thank you, Your Majesty," he said simply, understanding the depth of her trust and the significance of the moment. The Empire had changed, subtly but undeniably. Humans were no longer just workers or minor participants. They were capable, courageous, and respected. And in the quiet of the palace night, Alex realized that his journey was far from over. He had proven the value of a single human, yet there were countless opportunities to inspire, protect, and lead in ways that could reshape the galaxy. He stood tall beside the queen, the necklace resting against his chest, feeling the quiet power of recognition, responsibility, and hope. And for the first time, he understood fully that courage and skill could bridge gaps that politics, prejudice, and history often could not. The stars above shone brightly, reflecting the possibilities of the future. Alex, human and determined, was ready to meet them.